I'm Taryn Rosenkrantz, and this is Political TrailMix, where strategy meets storytelling, and every episode unpacks the people, power, and politics shaping our country. Let's dig in. Hi, I'm Taryn Rosenkrantz, and this is another episode of Political Trail Mix. I have with me my dear friend Rebecca Pearcey, and we are laughing because we're having all kinds of technical difficulties right now, and we're hoping that we didn't just erase part of our whole recording because we had a great conversation. We want to include you in it, and we want you to be a part of it. And I want to introduce Rebecca, or at least have her introduce herself, because, like I said, she is a political wizard and wonderful Democratic operative who's worked up and down the ballot.
Thank you, Taryn. I am very hopeful that we have not spent the last 51 minutes not recording your wonderful podcast that I am very happy to be part of. I'm Rebecca Pearcey. I'm a partner at Bryce and Gillette. We are a political ad making firm as well as a strategic consulting firm. I've been at the firm about 5 years, and prior to that, I spent 21 years doing campaigns all across the country. So whether that was stuffing envelopes or knocking on doors was actually my first political job, which I started doing in Oklahoma City in 2001, and it was very hot. So I started out doing a lot of field work. I worked in, I think, 32 different states. I've run a US Senate race, a gubernatorial race. I've spent some time at the committees here in DC. And my last political job, I was Senator Elizabeth Warren's national political director. I will say the thing I like about my job now is I still get to work with a lot of campaigns, and these are campaigns that are running up and down the ballot. And so what that means is I get to use the experience that I have from 21 years basically on the road to help candidates and causes I really care about figure out how to tell their stories and connect with voters across the country.
And that's amazing. And I think one of the things I will tell you is that this is a really good ad maker that we have on today. And I
Thank
will have
you.
to say that I respect and value her opinion. I wanted her to come on today because I love talking politics with you. I love causing trouble with you. As I
Yes.
said earlier, we're usually the two in the corner, either whispering, laughing, or gossiping in some way, shape, or form. And that is why, hopefully, we didn't cause too much trouble and all our technical difficulties are behind us.
Nope.
And,
Nope.
part one, part two, we'll see how it goes. I do want to ask you a question that I think we have not talked about
Yeah.
before. And so that's kind of fun, but it's something everyone keeps talking about. Like, Democrats have to have a leader. We don't have a clear leader. Blah, blah, blah,
Oh,
blah. I'm sorry that I'm saying blah, 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 because it's
no, no, no,
work
no.
to be
You're
saying,
right.
but
You're right.
I
You're right.
am curious if you care that we don't have a leader, or do you think we have a leader, or you think, it's coming?
This is a tough one because technically there are leaders. The
Mhm.
question is, are they leading? And I think since we're in the midst of a government shutdown, it feels like we are rudderless. It also feels like we are sort of powerless just because we're in the minority everywhere. Like we don't control the House or the Senate or the White House, and that feels kind of tough in a lot of ways. So I think it's right for people to wrestle with this question, particularly right now. I don't know. I feel like, yeah, we need somebody to set and focus the narrative and the agenda and to rally the troops. But one thing I think is like that does not come from the top down in Washington, D.C. Like it's got to come from a coalition of a lot of voters in a lot of different places who have different things at stake and are willing to try out different tactics to get things done. Like I think you have to think of this like, okay, we're a big tent. It's moderates, it's progressives, it's like every region, every walk of life. And sometimes it's chaotic and a lot of times it's messy, and that's okay. We just need to be okay and very comfortable with that chaos and sort of the unsurety of what happens in that chaotic little um, ecosystem we create for ourselves. So like it's tough. And I think what matters to me more than like having a singular leader, like one, we're just putting too much stock in a single person to get us out of
Mm.
this, right? And it's just too much.
Not going to be a single person
Yeah,
like
what we collectively need is like a shared purpose. So when the party is roughly moving in the same direction, our values are clear and we are protecting rights, we're growing opportunities, we're fighting for justice, and local leaders need the space to step up to do those things. They are validators in their communities, they are trusted in their communities, much more so than the people in DC who are heads of parties or caucuses. So again, I think this like just green lights everybody and gives permission to step outside of the traditional structure and get creative about it. Because we don't need a leader. We need a clear
Lots of
path.
leaders.
Yeah, we do. We really do need lots of leaders, and they can't have conflicting goals. I think that's the thing. They shouldn't have conflicting goals, but it's going to take more than three guys that live in Washington D.C. to figure this out.
You think? I think that's right. I think that might be right. And it really doesn't take a guy.
I don't want anybody to
But
get mad at me. Like I really
it
like
takes
Ken
a
Martin.
woman, but that's neither here nor there. We can get into that. What I will
Right.
say, what I will say is we were talking about this earlier and I want to bring it back up. I think that the Jimmy Kimmel cancellation was something that was like a moment, right? This reflection point of like, wow, look what happens when we do this together, right? Like
Yeah.
when we
Yeah.
unite together, we can unite under this one big thing and we can make a difference and we can have an impact. And I think the scary side of that as an ad maker is, scary, but at least we can sort of see the hope in some of what we do. And I'm
Yeah.
curious your thoughts on, just Trump and everything he's done and the cancellation and these first 100 days, like all the scary things, like, what we're feeling and what we can do, I think in response is really important. And I loved what you said earlier about politics being maintenance. And so
It
I think
is.
maybe you can share that with others because, like I said, I'm telling you, Rebecca writes and says good things. I usually call her Pearcey, so it's hard for me. I'm trying to call her Rebecca, but I'm like,
Why? Nobody calls me
I know maybe I
Pearcey. I
should
mean,
say Pearcey. Okay, but my
yeah.
point is that like she says really good things, and I want to put it on like a post-it and put it all over my house. Give myself like morning mantras that are like, oh,
I'll send you an
Pearceyism,
affirmation every day, Taryn. It's fine.
Pearceyisms. Oh, there we go. We've got it. It's
Okay.
Pearceyisms. Okay, but anyway, I asked you a question.
So, oh wait, what was the question?
Oh, what you think of the Kimmel cancellation, Trump's first 100 days, and sort of what's happening in this world and what we can do. And then I was prompting you with your good saying, your
Oh,
post-it.
thank you. I appreciate that. I will say I can't believe that it has only been 100 days or no, I guess not 100 days. It's been more than that, right?
No,
Scratch that.
it's been more than 100 days. It's been, I don't know, let's say since
300 days, right? I don't know. It
I'm
feels
like,
like,
let's not
okay,
talk
here's,
days. Let's say since
yeah.
January, our lives have.
Okay. So it feels like 100 years. And I
Yeah.
think that is kind of, it's kind of messing with everybody's minds a little bit. I know it's messing with mine. My sense of time is off based on like what this is. So it's like, I don't know if my sense of time will recover on this one. And it feels like each week is kind of packed with like so much stuff we can get it. I mean, it feels like a month ago that Jimmy Kimmel was canceled, right? And so
Yeah.
I think for us, it's just like an information overload in a lot of years. And I think that when it comes to the Kimmel cancellation, which it turns out it was just a little bit of a cancellation, and only in some media markets is it a cancellation, but it feels like a real punch in the gut. And it feels like it's the cancellation of more than just a show. It's the cancellation of freedom, of a movement. It feels like a real canary in the coal mine for people of us that are creative and creators. Um, and really on people who rely on culture and storytelling to reach audiences. So it says to me like, hey, the boundaries that you have known and operated under for the entirety of your career for people like me and Taryn is changing, but like here's the twist. They're not going to tell us how they're changing or when they're changing. Right. And
Yeah.
that's the hard part about like how to
You don't know
figure
the
out how to
rules.
start communicating with voters if we don't know what the Trump FCC is going to allow us to do, and if it's station by station, that gets even more complicated. So I do think that the flip side on this is when mainstream avenues start closing off, people get more creative. And so when Kimmel was canceled, we really saw um, an increase of people on Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, you name
Yeah.
it. They were talking more about one, censorship, but two, how could we let this happen in America? And then three, frankly, people were just going negative on Trump. And I think that was a really healthy outlet for a lot of people to get information out in a very quick way that does not require them to be on ABC.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And you can feel the power of that movement of people talking out loud and
Yeah.
people having the unity in numbers, right? Like when we
Yes.
get together.
100%. 100%. Yes.
And I think we've really like our industry has changed so much and you and I were saying this before. It's like we used to be able to really say this ad, black and white, factually wrong, go to the
Yep.
station, take it down. We can't do that now. And it's obvious even more so when you've got like Sinclair saying that we can't put Jimmy Kimmel back on after Disney
Right.
says they can. And it's changing our industry so much and it's changing what we're doing. And that fear, like you said, of like, you don't even know the rule book, they're just throwing stuff out at us. It's going to be interesting. But I think to your point, opening so many new avenues and
Yeah,
social
it
media
just does.
and
It's inherent. It's just going to happen. And it's going to be great. Scary, I think, but great.
it's something to look forward to. And I do think that like, I said this and I will say it again, there more people speaking up is always a good
Yeah.
thing, right? And so like if we can get that message to people and get them engaged and involved, I think that's a good thing. I'm sort of curious. I just want to say that, Pearcey and I, a few days after the election, sat down to this election postmortem, which was like devastating at the time because none of us were in the place to discuss anything. And I know that I've said this, 1,000 times. It's like, there was this panel, post-election postmortem that we were talking about, and I know that it was really, really important that we had both sides there to kind of talk so that we could learn and listen. But what was funny to me was that the Republicans and the Trump campaign were like three versions of themselves. It was like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. There was like one short, medium size, older size, one
It
young,
really
one middle
was.
aged, one
One
older. It
old.
was like very funny. Like, and they're very, nice people, I'm sure. But like it was like kept blowing my mind. There were these three men that were the three versions of themselves. They were all bald, but just in different levels of age, different sizes. Like I was stuck
This
on
is
that.
actually true. It is actually
This
true.
is
We're not
actually
mocking.
legitimately
This
true, which
is
is why
very
it's
true.
adding
Yes.
to, I'm trying to set the scene here.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
the Democratic side, we did still have, albeit some people of color, but we did still have men on the side. And it was a room full of men discussing what went wrong about a woman's campaign. And the irony of that has never left me. And I know that you and I were sort of sitting there shell shocked, but
Yeah.
also with pen and paper in hand to learn and to figure out what went wrong. And I love that. So I'm curious, and I want to know from you, like, what do you think was the biggest thing we learned out of that, or the biggest pain point last cycle? And what will you kind of try to do differently this time?
Yeah. And I think, this is something I will probably keep coming back to, which is just the way we communicate as ad makers and as creators and as campaign advisors to our candidates and the way that we're advising them to communicate with voters. So, one thing that I definitely learned about last cycle is like the information intake of an everyday voter is like drinking through a fire hose, right? It's just too much. Your 30-second ad is not going to cut through if they're seeing anywhere between 9 and 16 hours worth of content a day, which is crazy, right? That's just like screen time in the morning. That's the radio on the way to work. That's like screen time at work. It's all of these sort of touch points throughout the day. So no matter how sharp or how good or how heartfelt your 30-second ad is, alone is just not going to cut it. And we've got to be able to figure out what is the right media mix for voters, but also like, what are we saying that's actually going to stick with people? And who are the trusted messengers that make that up? So to me, it's like the sort of this new way of communicating, and it's almost like a new currency, right? It's like
Yeah. Oh,
we
I love that.
are we are putting all of the same work into making these ads. Like, Taryn and I will spend like hours or weeks developing ads, a slogan or a campaign plan, and then you launch it. But all it does is just get mushed up with everything else, so it doesn't matter. And so what we need to do is we need to try some vertical videos. We need to try some TikTok. We need to try some more organic and authentic content from our candidates, because that is the stuff to me that was the most surprising and the most effective coming from people in the Democratic Party that did not cost a ton of money. Like, these are not high-tech ad shoots where you need, a bunch of lights and you're going to blow up an aircraft carrier, or like, all of these things you see on TV, and it's like, wow, that's a really cool ad. And it's like, yeah, it cost $1 million to make. And guess what? Nobody's going to remember it any more than they remember the 30-second, vertical video of your candidate saying, like, here's what I did today. Here's why I think I will go to Washington and make your life better. Here's where you can go to help out. Right? Those things get the same reaction from voters. And I think it's important to remember that kind of stuff.
100%. And I think we're all learning that social media is our friend and not foe.
Yes.
People,
Yes.
right? But like, I think there's this hesitancy of Democrats to do it, and to
Yeah.
engage because they're scared of what can happen and how it can backfire. But what ends up happening is if you're not part of the conversation, you're missing things. So we like encourage
Yeah.
to like use social media listening tools so they can hear what people are saying about them,
Ooh, that's
about
smart.
their
That's very
issues,
smart.
right? Because
Yeah.
otherwise, it's high school. Like, you don't know that people are gossiping about you behind your back.
Yeah.
You can't refute the rumor without knowing what the rumor
Knowing what it
is,
is. That is
right?
so
And
smart.
so
Yeah.
we have to start somewhere. And I think as political operatives, when you're requiring polling and all these different things to know what the right message is, like,
Yeah.
sometimes we can really do a lot of testing right there on social media and see reactions and engagements, and it's
Yeah.
really changing the game, I think, and so much. I have a question about you about changing the game, though. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
so making it easier to make ads, quote unquote, but it's also making it harder to resonate. I'm just curious. We both sit on the American Association of Political Consultants, and every like board meeting is the same about
Yeah.
AI, and that's
AI. We talk a lot about AI
like, so
there.
it's getting easier to make ads, quote unquote, with AI. I'm curious about your take on AI. Thumbs up, thumbs down. That's
Can I
simple.
give it like a somewhat skeptical thumbs up and tell you why?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like it's
How's
a
this?
meh.
Okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
like it. I
It's
like it.
like it's
It's
about
three
there.
quarters
So
up.
like, yeah. But here's where I think it can be super helpful. And I am excited to start using this in my practice this year. A/B testing. It is
Yep.
going to make sure that A/B testing moves a lot quicker when we are doing that. I have started using AI to do the scratch or like the first draft of audio in my ads, so that when they go to my clients, it's just like an AI voice, and I tell them that's an AI voice, but I want your okay on the visuals and the language before
Right.
I bring in a
Timing.
voiceover
Yeah.
actor who costs money and is part of a union. And like, so I'm not trying to put them out of business. I'm trying to save the candidate a little bit of money. Um, I think AI is good for creating graphics on the fly. And I think, these are all things that are a massive advantage when you're running political campaigns and things are moving so quickly. You can't really like, anytime you can find 15 minutes to save, I take it, right? That is just like what this is. But I think here's where it gets tough, because I don't want to put any of the people that I like working with, like my producers, my like editors, my voiceover artists, like I don't want to put them out of business. And I think the human touch on the ads that we do is so vitally important that the second we hand over any of that judgment to AI, we are leaning too hard on automation. There's this dark side, right? And that is deep fakes, it is manipulated ads, it is maybe inaccurate information, where if you're using AI to like cite a law or something that your opponent said, you still got to fact check that, because what if somebody fed AI something that's not true? And you don't want your client to get dinged on a false ad because you relied on AI. You still need that human element in a lot of this. So I think that is the real threat, that people will start to move too fast and lose sight of the human touch that needs to be involved in all of the storytelling that we do.
Right. And the personal piece to it.
Yeah.
So
And like
important.
they're not people. Like, every AI that I've put in an ad is like creepy.
Yeah,
Right?
I feel
Like
like
they
the
don't
voice
look
is
quite
very
real
creepy.
enough yet. And I
Yeah,
don't,
the voice is very creepy, which is why, like,
yeah.
even when you send it, you're like, oh, I tell them it's an AI voice. I'm like, I'm sure they
I
know.
have to, or they're like, what? Who is this? They sound like a
They're
robot.
like,
I'm
why
like,
does this person
oh,
sound awful?
by the way, it's a robot.
Yeah,
Right?
that's why. That's why. Yeah, they sound like a robot. That's why it's
Yeah,
very
it's
robot.
weird. It's super weird.
Yeah, super weird. We don't like that. And
Yeah.
I think I love what you said because I feel like we say that a lot here too. We're like, I use the AI for the data, for the science, for the targeting,
Yeah.
for the things that are not the creative. But the creative is AI is never going to be as creative as a human. It's
Right.
not, right?
Just
Like
can't. Yeah.
it's not going to be. And
Yeah.
the power of the people. Look, we just talked about it. Like, right,
Yeah.
brought Kimmel back. We got like
Yeah. Yeah. We
we
did
can
we
make
did this,
yeah,
guys.
right.
Yeah.
Like, right, like we are emotional people and we are trying to spark an emotion, and you're just not going
Yeah.
to be able to get that. And
Right.
no one's in favor of the deep fakes. You know, I mean, maybe,
No, no.
but like,
And I think that changes over time too,
yeah,
right? Because I was at an AI conference that campaigns and elections did post primary this year. And I
yeah.
was talking with a Republican that said that he used a deep fake to impersonate his opponent's voice and read that opponent's 10-year-old op-ed in his opponent's voice and put it on the air as if it was him reading it and being proud of it. And it is something that he had changed his position on, but it really tanked that candidate.
Of
And I
course.
was like, that is low. I mean, I just don't know ethically if that's where we are as an industry, or if this is going to be another thing that like Republicans are doing it because they don't care, and Democrats are just too like, no, 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 that's wrong. And we're
Well,
just
and
too
it takes a
behind.
while for it to catch up, right? Like,
Yes,
and
a
to catch up with the
hundred
ethics.
percent. Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
obviously been doing digital since the dawn of time.
Right. Right.
But like, but it was a wild, wild west, and it still is to a large degree. But
Right.
it was like, especially in the early days. So like, if you didn't police yourself,
Yeah.
where do you end up, right? Like, and so
Yeah.
I was always like, hey, there's a line, and here's where it is. And if you're asking people for money, here's the respectableness of this, and here's
Yeah.
what you think is important and right. And when I worked at the DCCC, and we sent out those annoying spam emails and text messages, I will tell
Yeah.
you that there was a difference between there were lines we would not cross, and there was certain pieces of it. And for years after I left, I would say my firm's thing was, we do digital with dignity because I believe you have to, right? I know you like that, don't you? I believe you have to like have some kind of a line. And I think AI is in the same point right now, inflection point, that it's like, we don't know where the line is. So we'll just keep jumping
Yeah.
over it, and people get further
Yeah.
and further over the line. And it takes a while to catch up. Obviously, people have backed off a lot of the same crazy ass email tactics and texting, the on my knees, begging you please, like stuff
Yeah.
it because it became so absurd. And I think that like, again, if people weren't self-policing, like they go so far before it like really catches up to you. It's like,
Yes.
oh, now people are annoyed with the 32 emails and texts a day. Got it.
Finally.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't, and there has to be volume tolerance in data. And actually, it's a great use of AI to look at your stats
Yeah.
and give you pattern analysis and
A
trend
hundred
analysis and
percent.
all the stuff. That's where
Yes.
you use AI. And
Yes. Yes.
I want to say you touched on this when we were talking about deepfakes and powerful ads, and I am curious, like, what your favorite, good or bad, evil, whatever, um, ad was last cycle.
Well, I'll say like it's to me it was an evil ad by the Trump campaign that it was the Kamala trans ad. Kamala is for they them, Trump is for us, which was just like I think just such a devastatingly simple hit that really resonated with a lot of voters that were probably on the fence or had already made
Yeah,
up their mind, and reminded them of why they liked Trump. And to me was there was no possible comeback to that ad for Kamala. And I
yeah.
don't think they responded. Like somebody should fact check me. But um, that was tough. That was a really, really tough one. And it really made me think like, oof, this is really hard. One of
And
the
we,
things that I think, oh, go ahead.
no, 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 go ahead, go ahead.
Well, one of the things I think about that ad is that it was just so completely simple. There were
Yeah,
no, fancy graphics, no exploding stuff. It was just like a voiceover in a studio spot ad that probably cost $20,000 to make and ran everywhere. And like
everywhere.
I said, frankly, I think was really devastating and played to a lot of insecurities and anxieties of Trump voters to get them to really solidify their anti-support of Kamala.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and they keeping it simple. There's this KISS method that they teach you like in marketing back in the day. And I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
really holds true here that keep it simple, stupid. It's like this is where political messaging at its best, I think, is when it's as simple as possible and it's something to remember. I know I was telling you earlier that we did a campaign where it was pollute or Pete. And right, like that is
It's so
so
perfectly
simple,
simple
right?
that it,
Like,
it
and you get,
works.
right, you get that Pete is a polluter, and that's bad. And in Colorado, we like our nature, and so that's bad. We don't like polluters.
Yeah. I mean, I also think that in terms of like breaking through, which is what, is one of the big things I learned from last cycle, and not necessarily just from the Trump campaign itself, but from how much activity there was and how much information every voter seems to be intaking, whether it's political or not. Like when you're making an ad, you really need to stop and think like, will this person like does this matter to this person, the voter you're trying to get? And one of the things I like to think about is like, is this ad going to resonate like with my mom,
Mm,
or is this going to resonate with somebody like, my best friend that lives in Boston, right?
right.
She's got two kids, she's super busy, she's doing all this stuff. Like, is it going to get them, or is this just like more just shit that they are listening to that doesn't get them? And so
Yeah.
that's something I really try and think about, because I don't just want to create ads and then get the lawyers to sign off on it and then I cash a check. Like that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to do a lot more, which includes winning races, but that means that we've got to create ads that really stick with people.
Yeah. It's that song that's stuck in your head is really what
A,
that's
a
that.
jingle. Yes, it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
jingle. I will
It's
take a
the,
jingle any day of the week. So yeah, if you want me to come write a jingle for your campaign, I could be your girl. But yeah, I love that kind of stuff, but it really needs to stick out in a really crowded airspace, because again, it's not just the information that's going on, it's like everything that's going on in the world, which is also a tough thing to really like think about. Think about other people as they are experiencing it. It's tougher in some states right now than it is in others, and that's
yeah.
something also to consider when you're thinking about what do these ads need to look like and feel like.
Yeah. And well, I think, one of the things we did learn at that postmortem and that we talked about then and now and all the time is that like they targeted so that they just had to find, the seven battleground states. They just had to shave off
Yep.
1% from a couple of different constituencies. And so hitting the right message to the right people at the right time and with the right frequency meant everything. And so I think when we approach digital, when we approach these ads that you're making, it's like that becomes the most powerful thing in our mind. Like, am I
Yeah.
accomplishing that? And you have to create a lot of versions if you're trying to hit a lot of different people. Or maybe you have the magic and can find, just one message that works for everyone. But it is sort of that most important thing I think I learned from last cycle is that ability to like, we've really got to make sure that we are touching everyone in the right way and with the right message.
I mean, the thing I learned last cycle is that there is no magic ad in
Yeah.
terms of like having the one ad that hits everybody. There's just there's no such there's no such district anymore where that works
Yeah.
in my mind. Like you just can't. You've got to be able to talk to voters on something that they care specifically about. And like Taryn and I love each other, and what if we live next door to each other? We should be getting different content,
Yeah. 100%.
right? Just
Right.
like we just should. And that's the way we need to start thinking about how to talk to each of these voters.
And I think I think we don't acknowledge that as often as we should. And
Yeah,
then
100%.
you
No, we
you
definitely
said
don't.
something earlier that I think just like encapsulates this, and so I just want to repeat it. It's one of her post-it notes, right? The Pearceyisms that I said at the beginning. But she said politics is maintenance, not miracles. And I'm going to put that on a bumper sticker and on a t-shirt that I wear that says, Pearcey says. But I think that's so true to your point, right? Like, which means it's kind of like not the sexiest work in the world that we can't just have one big homophobic ad,
Yeah.
transgender phobic ad that says they, them and hit the jackpot, right? But you still like may have a defining ad or a game defining ad, but it is the maintenance of like finding the people. Who do I need to shave off of this percentage of voters? Who do I need to persuade? How do I get to their message? How do I reach them? And to your point, that I'm making sure that I have a different message between the two of us.
Yes.
We need to hear different
Yes.
things. And how do we get there? It's so much, and I love that. So I will say, putting it on a t-shirt.
You can buy it on the podcast website, everybody. Don't
Right,
worry.
there you go. There you go. That's where we'll make all our money is
Yeah.
through that.
Nice, nice, nice.
I know you've got a lot of Piercyisms, and they're all
I
great.
love it.
I do want to ask you a couple of final questions.
Sure.
One would be just, something you're most proud of on the campaign. I think that's something that like you worked on a lot of campaigns, from Elizabeth Warren to Ted Strickland to I'm trying to think of everything. You did the DLCCIE. I don't. You've worked on a million things. But I'm curious what a really moment you're really proud of.
Um, this was a question that Taryn asked if I would make sure I answer because she said, "Are you okay with all of the questions?" And I said, "I don't want to do this one, but here we go."
Okay.
Because it's weird.
It's
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 weird to say like,
uncomfortable for us to
yes, I'm
really
a very,
say things to brag on ourselves, but you should brag on yourself. That's the important.
I really used to view myself as very much behind the scenes before I started doing podcasts and things like that. So I started working for Elizabeth Warren on the presidential campaign in January of 2019, and we didn't know each other at all prior to me jumping on board and really taking on a leadership role with things like ballot access, staffing her at events, making sure that elected officials knew when she was coming to town, facilitating meetings with her and labor leaders and other um, institutional leaders here in DC and in the States. And we had a meeting here in DC, and it was probably March. Um, and I was staffing her. So I like met her at the curb, and we get in the elevator, and I'm like telling her, here's how it's gonna go. Here's her briefing. Don't forget to say this. Make sure you ask for this. All of these sort of very much typical staff interactions. And she just like looks at me and she says, no. And I'm like, well, this
You
isn't
never want a
good.
candidate to say no, by
Right?
the way.
I'm like,
Like,
what do you mean? I'm like, she's like, no, you will be in the room with me. You will be at the table with me. You've been doing this longer than me. Like, why would you be outside? And I'm like, okay. And like, it was not, I didn't act as weird as I am acting now when I am telling you the story. But I was like, okay, understood. Got it, Senator. Like, right. Um, but it reminded me that number one, she said something that was very just like factually accurate that I'd never thought about, that I had been doing politics longer than she had. She got into office in 2012. I started doing campaigns in 2001. But I do deserve to have that seat at the table and to be a strategic mind that is helping to craft campaign strategy and, asking people for the help we need and being a real leader on that campaign meant, a tremendous amount to me. And just knowing that I had her trust and like had um the permission structure to be like, I can run some of this stuff on my own and I will tell her how it's going to go, but I also deserve to be in the room and having a seat at the table.
you definitely deserve a seat at the table. I will sit with her anytime. We enjoy going to lunch, happy hours, dinners, sitting at a bar, chatting. She's great to chat with. She has
I
great insights,
I
as you know.
try. I try.
And great mantras that I like to live by. I love that story. I love that story because I think we all face, especially as women consultants, like we felt like for a long time we didn't have a seat at the table. I like, was trying to tell the story earlier in the all Mel panel on the postmortem from this year's election. That's 2024,
Yeah.
right? And we're talking about a woman who still didn't win president, right? Like we face this so much, and we face well, many call that imposter syndrome, and
Yeah.
I feel like we shouldn't feel that way, but so often we do. So that's really a defining moment.
I don't even know if it was imposter syndrome at that point. It was more just like, what am I doing? Like, where do you want me to sit? you know?
Well, but
And part of that really is imposter syndrome now. And, if I was staffing a candidate, it wouldn't even occur to me to not be in the room. And I
right,
think it really
there you
was
go.
that, right? But I do think it was really that, that singular 15-second conversation where she was like, no. And then I was like, I'm
You're the
getting fired,
expert.
aren't I?
You're the expert. No, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, you're the expert, which is really it's nice to hear, but it's a very tough thing for behind the scenes operatives for a long time.
I would really like more clients who say you're the expert.
The same, girl, the
So same,
same.
same, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know so many of us are consultants, and I'm a consultant too. And this is going to be like our 15th year of like, you know, not having clients and candidates always think you're
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
expert, no matter what.
Yes.
I do find we
Yes.
run into this with digital because everybody's like, I'm a consumer of social media, thereby I understand how to use it better than you.
Right. And it's just
I
like,
am a
okay,
consumer of, my phone, thereby.
right.
I'm like,
Thereby let me help make this buy. Right. Like, and you're just like, what? No.
I'm sure it's worse with these ads because they're spending like more money and more time and they're in it. They're filming themselves a lot of times. I feel like we sometimes we have them filming themselves, but it's hard because they don't want to always listen.
True, but sometimes I have found that getting a candidate to write a first draft of a script is the best way for me to like nail their voice. And so
Yeah,
I welcome it. I really think like, sometimes having candidates that are too involved or overly involved in the creative process makes it tougher on us. But I think if you just like lean in and say, do you want to write a couple scripts? They think it's cool. As long as it's not taken away from call time, it's not really hurting anybody. And if they're garbage, you can just like figure it out. You just
right.
like figure out how to
Oh,
make it
I've
a
always
little bit
believed,
better.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If somebody wants to write their own email or write
Yeah.
their
Like
own script,
whatever.
yeah, like
Yeah. I,
let
I
them
want them
write it.
to.
Just let us have some editing power, and that's
Yeah.
like the first
That's
draft.
healthy. I think it's healthy. It's their campaign. So I'm for it.
Yeah, I don't want to run. I want
No,
to
I'm
be
not. I'm not. I'm
executed.
not running for office. But if they want to write an email or write a script, I'm for
Yeah,
that. I
yeah,
want
yeah.
them to do
Oh,
that.
I agree. I love it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that goes to like what would you tell someone who wants to run, like wants to run for office, wants to get involved in politics?
Um, what do I tell them? Well, sometimes I'm like, why? Like, are you sure?
Yeah,
And I think that I really mean that because I know how tough it is, and it really takes a special kind of person and a special type of dedication, for people who want to serve. Because I think that's what this ultimately is. It's not like anybody is getting rich by being in office, but there are a lot of things you can do to improve the lives of those around you. And I think that is admirable and noble, but I think it takes a lot of hard work that people don't understand. Um, so that's like on the running side. For the people that are like wanting to get involved in like politics as a profession or as a
yeah,
volunteer, like I would just say jump in. Jump in wherever you are. You don't need to move. You're never going to find the perfect race. You're never going to have the perfect resume. It may not be a position that you think is uniquely suited to you because you haven't done a campaign before, but it's not like you're going to graduate from grad school and be given this very high level job at the White House. Like it just doesn't happen that way, the way it may have happened in things like, oh, I don't know, the West Wing.
thing.
So, there's no like wizard behind the curtain who's handing out like invitations to say, come be in politics. So it's more about getting close with people who are kind of in it, even if it's
Yeah,
just your friend down the street and say, like, hey, do you want to go knock on doors for this candidate in Virginia this Saturday? That is a way to get involved in politics. And I think that there's an underestimation of how this barrier to entry into campaigns seems more complicated than it actually is. Because,
Yeah.
like I said, you can stuff envelopes, you can knock on doors, you can give money. There's a lot of things you can do. And you know what's great about it? You can bring your friends. And I
Yeah.
think that that is like building your squad out so that campaigning is a team sport is one way to really like build power in your own community. And I think a lot of people are, realizing that in this sort of fractured media moment, but also a really fractured moment in American democracy, that
Yeah.
you really need to rely on people you already know to help you figure out how to navigate all of this.
Yeah. I mean, that is 100% how I got my start, like in high school. And I was a freshman in high school. And actually, the boy I was dating at the time, who I later found out was a Republican, I was quite devastated. I didn't realize that.
Ooh, Taryn,
Um,
rough.
no, I know. I didn't know.
Mm,
But I don't think he is now. I'm going to just go with that he
okay,
is.
good.
But anyway,
Sure. Got it.
long involved story was that his mother's good friend was running for the state senate in Virginia, and or no, I guess she was running for delegate. She's now a state senator, but
Okay.
and they were like, you know, do you want to like come help knock on doors and stuff envelopes and I was so good at phone banking, as you can imagine. And door
Obviously,
knocking,
Taryn.
that the campaign manager was like, would you like to be like the high school liaison? She gave me some fancy title that basically just meant more free work. And I was like, I'm reporting for duty. It's like I was supposed to go recruit all of my friends to come and volunteer on the campaign, and I did. And then when she went to go run her next race, she took me with her, and then like I'm sitting there with Chuck Robb,
Oh
like
my God.
like right, because I just kept being like, of course I'll get more volunteers reporting for duty, like right. It's fun, and it's funny that like we are back to some of those like basics of campaigns because
Yeah.
we didn't do them during COVID, right? And so I keep saying some of these younger campaign managers and stuff are like, oh, well, we didn't really have the same kind of field experience. I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's what you need, I think, to really like find the passion that'll keep you going 20, 25 years later. As I'm
I
still
mean,
doing this, I'm like, okay, you
where
gotta.
were the child labor laws, Taryn?
Well, I graduated high school 30 years ago. So 34 years ago, there were no child laws. It's just me working,
Amazing.
working all the time.
Amazing.
And I did everything. I swear to God, whatever they said, I would be like, oh,
I'm
I'm
sure. I'm
helping.
sure. Just like, yes, for sure. Whatever.
But I just loved being part of a race, like, right? Like, and I think
Yeah.
that's what we all kind of feel. It's like it is fun to be in politics and it is fun to be
Yeah.
doing these things. And I look at a lifetime later of like, just people were very excited to meet their member of Congress or to meet like, right. And we get to be on the
Yeah.
journey where these people become the members of
Yes.
Congress.
Yes.
I have that moment
Yes.
because I forget, like, the governor of Wisconsin, like, wow, you were like just Tony, and then we helped you to become governor, right? Like, we like have helped you to become president, right? Like, these are amazing things. And so some of these clients, as we approach our 15th year, I'm like, some of these people have been with me from the beginning, and they've gone through many
That's
different,
amazing.
yeah.
That's
Um,
amazing.
but it's crazy to think as everybody goes through this that we're
Yeah.
but
A 100%.
it does bring the hope. And we have an election. We actually have an election in November this year.
Yes.
There's a lot going on in Virginia and New Jersey, and I think it's a whole other podcast, so maybe we don't chat about
Yeah.
it.
I do
Yeah.
not have predictions there, Taryn, if
No,
you're
you should
wondering.
not have predictions
Yeah.
there
Like,
because
no, thank you.
I'm knocking on wood, lighting candles, as I said earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I do want to hear your take on the midterms. I want to see
Yeah.
what your predictions are. I've been asking everybody the same question about their predictions.
So, um, I'm not despondent despite what I just did with my face, right? I'm really just thinking about my answer. Um, I think that we should expect the unexpected.
Yeah, I
And
love
I
that.
think that means like polls are going to be tight everywhere until the very end. And I think the crowded media market I've alluded to throughout the podcast is going to continue to be a crowded and noisy media atmosphere. And so I think the pundits that you see on TV are going to focus on like the same usual suspects, which is the US House and the US Senate and what that means for 2028's presidency. But, I think that there is a ton of work and a lot of opportunity in a lot of these down ballot races in states. And so that is where we will see some real progress in governor's races, secretary of state's races, state legislatures, boards of elections, which, as you know, if we elect good people at boards of elections, Republican or Democrat, as long as they're not election deniers, we have a better chance of running fairer elections in 26, 28, and beyond. So that's like a real focus of some of the work I'm most interested in right now. And so I think those races that I just mentioned have such an immediate real world impact on people in those states that it's your cost of living could go down based on who the governor is and not just because of who the president is. I think a lot of ballot initiatives are going to have very real and immediate impacts on people too. So abortion rights will just keep driving some new coalitions in unexpected places. And I think you'll see a lot of really creative storytelling out of places like the Midwest, where there will be some really interesting things on the ballot there as well, like, Supreme Court races, which I'm working on, one of those, AG races. But, I think we've got to take off our DC hats and not just think this is the only game in town, because it's certainly not. There will be elections in 50 states next year, and that's awesome.
And those
So,
matter. Those matter. I mean, that's your DLCC hat with the fact
yeah,
today. But that is it. Those matter.
yes.
Those matter. We saw how often that we had to stop something, or the AGs suddenly is like the most
Absolutely.
important position
Or
on earth, right? Like, yeah.
during COVID, I was doing a lot of work on Secretary of State's races in that first cycle of 2020, where good secretaries of states were changing the laws to ensure that people could go vote. And if we had Republican secretaries of states in these places, I think the 2020 elections would have been very different. So we're talking Nevada, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, Arizona. Those are all places where we either kept or flipped Secretary of State's races in 2020, which was vitally important to the way that people were able to cast their votes. And I think what you are seeing now is a lot of retraction from those laws where Republicans have won, or if it's a board of elections, they're not letting the votes get to the secretary if it's a Democratic secretary of state in these states. So that's where your very small races, like a board of elections, where you can really make an impact with $25,000 or $30,000, comes into play to ensure that at the very local level, we've got people who are on our side, like I said, Republican or Democrat, who are willing to say, this is the fair way we count votes, and this is what we're going to do from now on.
Yeah. Yeah. Which it's so scary.
It's the whole thing. The whole thing that I just said is terrifying, because I think that if we'd have this conversation in January, I would be like, no, elections are going to go on. Everything will be fair. Everything will be fine. And I don't feel that confident in it now. And I don't say this to scare anybody, but I really want people to be able to be prepared and to pivot on races that they are invested in, whether that's with time or money or consulting or whatever, because we may need to make a pivot. It may just be that a lot of us in DC are going out into states and being like, okay, well, I guess this Secretary of State is my most important client right now. And that's fine. Because it's not all sexy. In fact, almost none of this is sexy.
Politics is maintenance, not miracles. Pearceyism.
It is just not as glamorous as the TV and movies have made it out to be. So I look forward to being in the state for a really long time later this year.
Oh, it's just like it. Yeah. I mean, we all get through it, and then we have campaign amnesia, like they say you do when after you have a kid, right? Like everyone's like, "Oh, that wasn't so bad. I can do it again." And then eventually,
and you're like, "What?"
You go become a consultant where you do the same thing for like 20 at a time, thinking that that's like your retirement, right? Like we're nuts.
Yes, I know, but somebody asked me earlier today, would I do another campaign, and I was like, no, and then I was like,
do you have one more?
No, probably not.
I'm going to start the rumor.
Call me.
Pearcey would love to run your presidential campaign. Yeah, I will start this rumor. No.
Okay, great. No problem.
I think that it has been an amazing time spending with you.
I have loved this, Taryn.
Than you probably meant to spend with me, but I always love spending time with Rebecca Pearcey because she is the absolute best. And I'm so
Thank you,
excited
Taryn.
that she came and talked with us today and about all of her insights and all my new Pearceyisms, which
I know. I hope
we're
you're
on
writing these
Post-its
down
near
because
me.
they're not. I will tell you what, Taryn, those things I said were not in my notes. So we need to.
So you're just like, you just come up with them on the spot. Even better.
I make ads, people. Hire me.
I create content.
Yeah. I'm a content creator, writer.
You are a content creator.
Thank you.
I know. I love following you on all social media because you're hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
Are in life, which just goes to our earlier point about authenticity. but sometimes
I am nothing
if I
if
haven't
not.
seen her in a while, I can still hear the.
We can catch up.
Yeah, we can catch up. All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Taryn.
Thanks for listening to Political Trail Mix. Make sure to follow and review wherever you get your podcast and stay connected with me on Instagram and YouTube. Let's keep this conversation going.